Alright, so we're going to pull the transmission on this truck. I'm going to start off by getting these top transmission bolts back up against the firewall and get those two out. And then we'll go underneath. Trying to think what all needs to come out from up here. I think that's the main thing. It's just those two top transmission bolts. So let me get those out, and then we'll go up underneath and start undoing stuff underneath. We'll need to take the drive shaft off, transmission cooler lines, the cross member, the other 4 bolts on the transmission, the flywheel cover. So let me think, what else? Speedometer cable. Did I say drive shaft? Drive shaft. Dipstick tube will need to get pulled out. Shift linkage, and I think that's about it. So let's get started. Alright, those 2 upper bolts are out. Ended up taking so you got the 2 upper ones way back on the thing over there, on the bell housing. Then you've got one down on this side, and then another lower one near the starter. So this one that's up here, the top one, the top passenger side bolt, is really hard to get to. So to gain a little access, start with the next one down, which holds the dipstick tube. So you take that one out, which you can get to from underneath here with the long extension. Take that one out, wiggle joint. Take that one out. Pull the dipstick tube out, and that gives you extra room to get to that top bolt. The driver's side's not as bad. It's that dipstick tube is just in the way on the passenger side. So, got that out. Got those bolts out. So, we've got 3 bolts out. We've got 2 left on the driver's side, 1 left on the passenger side. Let's go ahead and get some of this other stuff out. We're going to get the drive shaft out of the way. We've got 4 little 4 bolts that hold these little saddle straps on. Take those out, and then we'll be able to pull the drive shaft out of the yoke. So once we do that, I'm going to pull the flex plate cover off, undo the cooler lines, undo my line that goes to my pressure gauge, undo the speedometer cable, which I may be able to do right now. Nope. I have to have some pliers. That, cooler lines, inspection cover, shift linkage. Once I get all that off, I'll probably get my transmission jack under it, start unbolting the other bell housing bolts, and then probably unbolt the cross member here. Yeah, looks like we've got, I think that's going to be the best way. We've got some bolts that are going to be hard to get to up here. Forgot how the 2-wheel drive cross member was. It's got this extra piece that goes to the top of the frame. Let me think. Those nuts on the back side? Yeah, I can get to the bottom of them. So they were welded on nuts. So I'll probably have to turn them underneath here. We'll get this cross member loosened up, and like I said, after I get the transmission jack under it, then we'll be almost ready to pull it out. Well, back up. Before I undo any of this stuff and get my transmission jack in the way under here, after I undo the inspection plate cover, the torque converter cover, I will, flex plate cover, whatever you want to call it. The, torque converter bolts. I need to get to those. So, that'll probably be the next step. I think I want to do that before I undo the cooler lines, so the cooler lines aren't dripping, before I do the drive shaft. So let me just go ahead and undo the bolts out of this cover. Hopefully I can get the cover off without dropping the exhaust, because I really don't want to drop the exhaust on it. And then I'll get the torque converter bolts loose. Well, I wouldn't say that was the easiest thing to get off. It's got 4 little bolts in it. Of course the bolts are easy to undo. But I was able to take it, slide it, of course. Take it and slide it up into right in here. And it slid right up in here past the oil filter. And then slide it down through here. Got it off. I was dreading those exhaust manifold bolts, and it looks like we're going to be able to leave the exhaust hooked up to it. I think we will be able to. Hopefully the transmission will have enough room to clear to slide it back and get it out. I think it will. So, we're at the torque converter bolts. We're going to have to unbolt these and we'll get them out. Oh, and torque converter's got something written on it from when it was rebuilt. Alright, let's get these out. Torque converter bolts are undone. Transmission lines are undone. So, now we've got this converter locked up plug, which I'll undo right now. Get that undone. It's a nasty old plug. And now, time for the drive shaft. Oh, and I gotta get this pressure gauge undone. Alright, here's where we are. Transmission lines undone. Can't remember if I told you all that. Got all the plugs off the transmission. I've got the plugs off. Got the drive shaft out. I know I showed you all the torque converter cover was off. Torque converter bolts are off. So now we're kind of ready. I've just got 2 bolts left holding it to the bell housing. So we need to lift up the transmission, and then I need to attach my jack to it, and we need to undo the cross member. Now, I've just got one of these cheap Harbor Freight jacks, but it works. And to make it a little easier, I just put my air ratchet up to it. To raise and lower it, and throw it to crank it. Now, got a little bit of a problem because I didn't disconnect the exhaust. We don't fit. So what I'm going to do is put a jack under the tail housing of the transmission, and I'm going to jack it up slightly, undo this rear transmission mount. And once I undo the transmission mount, jack it up, and then I'll unbolt the cross member. I can slide the cross member back, and then lift up my transmission jack, let down my other jack, pull the cross member out of the way, and then I'll be on my transmission jack. And then I can take the other two bolts out. So, let's, I'm going to need a little block of wood, and I'm going to jack this up, undo the transmission bolt, and then undo the cross member. So let's get this cross member out of here, and I'll get my jack attached. Oh, and I still gotta undo this line. Keep forgetting. Alright, making progress. Got the cross member out. What it's got 3 bolts that hold it to this bracket, 2 bolts that hold it to this frame, and 4 bolts on that side of the frame. 2 on the frame, the bottom of the rails, and then 2 up top. Then you've got, of course, the transmission mount bolt. Undid the speedometer cable. Got all the lines undone, the vacuum line. Undid the kick down cable. And of course, as soon as I make a video, the compressor kicks on. So all that's left is holding it is 2 bell housing bolts. So I'm going to unbolt those, and then we'll be ready to start trying to wiggle it backwards on the transmission jack. Alright, so I started letting my jack down after I got all the bolts out, and once it started letting down and kind of pulling the motor down so that there was some strain on those dowel pins, I just grabbed the tail shaft and just started wiggling like that, and it popped off those dowel pins. Sometimes it gets kind of stuck. So now we're loose and we're on the jack, so I can make sure I have all my lines, everything out of the way, kind of pull everything back, and get back far enough that I'm clear of the exhaust, so I can start letting it down more. Let's see, we should be. Make sure that all the wires are out of the way. Make sure everything looks good on the driver's side. Yep, we're all good. Transmission is strapped down so it can't fall off. We'll just let it down some more. And we're hitting up against the exhaust. Just roll it. Get that transmission, that speedometer cable out of the way. And let's go down more. Alright, jack is all the way down. So now, what I'm going to have to do is wrestle this thing off the transmission jack. As you can see, this thing is pretty thick, 8 inches or so, and I don't have a lift. I got it up as high as I could on my jack stands. Jack's under it just for safety. It's sitting on the stands. So we've got 4 stands under it, and they're up all the way. So I need more clearance. So we'll I've got an idea. we've got a little wooden dolly thing right over there. It's got my blasting sand on it. It may not be low enough. I've got some car dollies. I'm going to slide it onto one of those car dollies, and I think that'll allow us to get it out. If not, I may have to try to jack it up some more. Alright, it is out. So I ended up sliding it off onto one of these pads. These are absorbent pads, and slid it on that. This is one of those car dollies, and it wouldn't get it low enough to get under the frame. But once I slid it out, I put it back on here, so that allows me to roll it around. And when I tipped it up to pull it on there, it burped some fluid out the dipstick hole. So transmission is out. So I'm not sure, I may clean it up just a little bit. It's not too dirty, but it wouldn't hurt to clean it up a little bit. I'll put this plug back in it, and like I said, clean it up a little bit, and we'll get it ready to pull apart.